walking along this amazing coastal beach where the tides of time collide with the tides of madness. Two games seek to change the tide, and thus the course of time itself. Players will have to make a tough choice between set collection and garnering victory points. 2 players, 15 minutes, 2 card drafting games, 1 survivor. Today I'll be comparing Tides of Time with Tides of Madness. Both games are set collecting, card drafting games for 2 players. Tides of Time plays raise fortifications, build kingdoms, and hopefully they withstand the tides of time long before civilization has ceased to exist. In Tides of Madness, players push to the brink of insanity to try and garner the most victory points and thereby win. Tides of Madness is a sequel to Tides of Time. Tides of Time and Tides of Madness are both designed by Christian Curler. It's published by Portal Games. The games are for 2 players. Each game takes about 20 minutes. When you compare the box cover art, you've got this beautiful painted drawing of Cthulhu, and you've got this beautiful monument here. I think hands down both of them are equally as impressive, so they both get my thumbs up. In comparing the theme of both games, Tides of Time is more focused and centered around building those monuments, building those fortifications that will last the test of time, and hopefully if players choose the right monuments over the 3 rounds, they'll garner and reap some very important victory points. Tides of Madness is set in the world of H.P. Lovecraft and some of his very well-known pieces of writing. This game, with the addition of Madness tokens, really raises the level of tension and the choices that players can make across the 3 rounds. Tides of Madness gets my thumbs up. The Tides of Time cards really evoke a sense of grandeur. If you look at each of the individual cards, they have their distinct flavor to them. The art is incredibly detailed and immerses the players in the actual world that you're playing in. Each of the 18 cards are uniquely illustrated in rich detail. You'll also know that the art on the cards are enclosed by this white border, which is really good because as the cards get worn out over time, the art still remains in pristine condition. The tokens themselves are well printed and are highly durable. The iconography or the suits of each cards are written very, very clearly. With the cards in Tides of Madness, you'll notice that the art goes all the way to the edge of the card, really encapsulating and exploiting all of the space on the card and making them as beautifully rich as possible. Madness tokens are very large, durable, and very functional. The icons, once again, are very clear and very easy to understand. When you compare the artwork in both games, we can all agree that the artwork is nothing short of amazing. I really, really love it. So this decision is really hard because I think ultimately it comes down to preference. I will have to choose Tides of Madness. When you're comparing the rules and the instructions and the ease of learning and teaching someone else how to play, I think both rules do it very, very well. I also like how the rules actually immerse you in the theme. You've got this kind of traditional looking paper manuscript in this Tides of Madness. With Tides of Madness, if you have played Tides of Time before, it'll be much easier to pick up Tides of Madness because you just only have to look at the slight and small rule additions. In In my rules overview, because the games are so similar, I'm going to give a general overview of how the game works and then talk about some of the minor differences between the two. So essentially, Tides of Time and Tides of Madness are pure card drafting games. What you do is you take the 18 cards, shuffle them up, and then give each player 5 cards. What's interesting about this game is that all 18 cards will be used at some point in the game. So on the first round, players would look at their cards, they would pick a card that they would like to keep, place it face down in front of them, and then pass the rest of the cards on to the other player. For example, this card here, the Great Library, has the scroll, but you need to have the majority of the hands in order to gain the 7 victory points. So it's really important to have a look at the synergy that is involved between the cards. So this card might be a useful one to pick now because this card works in some ways with the library card here, because you need a set of these to get 5 victory points, and this will help you to get the 7 victory points later on. So picking this card might be quite a good choice. Although I've just noticed the King's Nest is in here. This is a really good card because if you're tying with another player, you actually win the tie and get the point. So I'm thinking maybe I should choose the King's Nest. So I'm going to place it down in front of me, place the other cards down. The other player chooses their card, and we swap our decks, and then we reveal the cards. We then draw into our hand the 4 cards that were passed from the other player, and I've got to look for cards that will help me gain lots of victory points for this round, but also in the long term. So seeing I've got a King's Crown, I might use this card as the one I choose. And what you should see over time is the fact that you're building a tableau, and as your tableau is built up, you will hopefully maximize the amount of points that you're getting. What's really important here is to make sure that you're observing what the other player's doing, so that you can either try and interrupt this strategy, but also try and deny the cards that they need in order to win. Because at the moment, they've got the 2 scrolls. Giving them a card which gives them victory points for the maximum amount of scrolls is probably not such a good idea right now. Once there are no more cards, this triggers the end of the round. Players will then need to score the victory points based on the abilities of their cards. Players then draw the 5 cards back into their hand and choosing one that they'd like to discard, and that means removing it out of the game. This strategy really can prevent the other player from garnering those very important victory points, and then choosing one that they would like to keep, which kind of embodies the strategy and the long-term goals that they're trying to achieve within the game. Players then reveal the card that they've chosen to keep by using a token, and reveal the card that they're discarding to the other player so they know what card has been removed, and players should have 3 cards left in their hand. They then draw another 2 cards to bring it back to 5, and then round 2 would begin, where you would draft, then you would record the score, then you would choose another card to keep, so therefore you should have 2 extra cards with tokens on them before the 3rd round, where you would have a tableau of 7 cards in front of you, and that would trigger the end game. And now in Tides of Madness, the gameplay is almost identical to Tides of Time with a few additional rules. At the end of the round, players need to count up their tentacles that they have on their cards, and they receive 1 Madness token for each tentacle that they have. This player has 3 cards with tentacles on them, and this player only has 1 card with a tentacle on it. Now, whichever player has the most number of Madness tokens, they can choose at the end of the round to remove 1 Madness token, or gain 4 victory points straight away. If a player ever receives up to 9 Madness tokens, they lose the game immediately. Welcome once again, everybody, to Tribal Council. This game is about relationships and alliances. What trust do you have in your alliance and your ability to win the sole title of Board Game Survivor? Interesting strategy for using these Madness tokens is when you can see that the other player has accrued a lot of these Madness tokens, you might be able to choose cards that don't have the tentacles on it in the third round and push the other player to gain more madness tokens than they actually need, and thereby forcing them to lose the game.
You've been out on this tropical island for 29 days now. You could go a little bit mad out here. How do you control that madness?
In addition to the madness token mechanic, two of the cards actually have abilities that relate to the number of madness tokens you have. The Necronomicon gives each player a victory point for every madness token they have, and the Dreamlands is a wild card but allows you to take a madness token from an opponent. What's really important to notice that each descriptor on each card, the suit that's on it, doesn't always match with the suit that's actually on the card itself. So a really good deep understanding of the synergy and the way the cards work together is really important here, because you need to balance out the effect of the card as well as gaining the suits that you need to maximize the points that. In comparing the gameplay, both games are essentially very similar at their core drafting mechanism. I feel like Tides of Time allows you to maximize those really great combos between the cards. If you really get some cards that synergize well, I think Tides of Time really excels in that department. Remembering what cards your players have played and cards that are in play and denying what your partner needs, I think is a really important strategy for trying to win. Tides of Madness really takes it to another level with those madness tokens in addition to those strategies I just mentioned with Tides of Time. I think the madness tokens really levels out the playing field and really tries to make you work on your timing strategies. Timing when the best time to garner madness tokens is, and timing when to use certain cards as well. I feel like in this game, the King's Nest is slightly overpowered, and gaining that card and using its ability really overthrows the game and really skewers it in one direction. I mean, it's not impossible to beat someone with the King's Nest, but using it in a very strategic way can make the game feel a bit imbalanced. Whereas Tides of Madness, getting those maximum combos isn't your only thing that you're trying to do. Reducing the amount of madness and leveling the madness out so you don't hit that 9 level is a really important thing to consider when you're playing the game. I think Tides of Madness comes up on top in terms of gameplay. When you lay out 12 of the 18 cards from both Tides of Time and Tides of Madness, you can see that the card abilities and effects themselves are quite similar. Except for Tides of Madness, which I'd like to draw your attention to these two pairs of cards. They have some minor changes. The original game had a leaf as a symbol on this card, the Maze of the Damned, whereas I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, has now the Outer God symbol, but the effect is essentially the same. The Sky Pillars card and the Deep Ones, the only thing that has changed is that now you get more victory points when you use the deep ones, but there's the added effect of gaining madness. These are the 4 pairs of cards that differ across the 2 games. You can see there are 2 cards here that are devoted to effects that relate to the use of madness tokens. Then you've got cards here that help you score more victory points. It's all about the different types of suits and whether you have a lot in one particular suit or whether you have the most numerous suits. So this side is more about collecting the actual sets of different suits and maximizing the scores that way.
It's now time to vote.
So we have a tough decision to make. Tides of Time or Tides of Madness? Are the games so similar that you only really need one and not the other? And what if I've never played Tides of Time or Tides of Madness? Well, it doesn't matter which one you get, you'll probably have a really good time. If you're asking for my preference, I would say that probably Tides of Madness, especially because those madness tokens really level out the gameplay a little bit more and add a little bit of complexity. But if you're looking to get both of them, I definitely get Tides of Time first, just so you get an idea of how to play, and even combining the suits is quite fun. But then progressing to Tides of Madness is really essential. Now, a really good, interesting variant, if you do own both games, there's a bit of a rarity. It's supposed to be a face-off, but this is melding the two together, is if you have 4 players, it's really interesting to try and combine the two sets of cards together. I don't know if that'll dilute the game down, but it's an interesting thought. Or what you could do is have 2 copies of the same game and play with 4 players and see what happens. Tides of Time, Tides of Madness, the tribe has spoken.